sustainability policies was mainly based on some sustainability priorities. The first priority was focused on reducing the impact connected to the conference venue. The second on reducing the impact connected to the transport activities directly controlled by organizers. The third, reduce the impact connected to catering activities directly controlled by the organizer. I have no time to explain each of these. Reduce the impact connected to the material use and consumption directly controlled by the organizer. For example, in this context, we try to introduce also the social dimension because, for example, just to give you an example of what we made, conference bags that we use are produced from the recycled fabric and produced by female incarcerated in a South.
Good afternoon, Research Society. And this afternoon I will talk mainly about indicators. So mainly about sustainability indicators and the link with the social angle. So the bridge between sustainability indicators and the social. So I start with this title for my presentation. How well are we doing? So the point is questioning the role of indicators in sustainable development assessment. So this presentation is mainly based on our topic group at the ISDRS. Our topic group is the last years when we organized the conference and the discussions in the topic group. So part of this work is already published if you are interested. So this presentation will be mainly divided in these 4 parts. I will start with a brief introduction and background and towards sustainable development. So this is quite well known and we all agree with this. So they are popular among scientists and practitioners and in fact they are one of the approaches most used in sustainability assessments, if we can say. And so there are lots of positive things in the literature, in the policy documents about the indicators. Oh, they are good. They are good to support decision making, they are good to communicate to stakeholders, they are good to synthesize information. Well, they are good to support collaborative learning. So fantastic things, fantastic positive things about sustainability indicators. Including the links with the SDGs. So this is a brilliant example of indicators could be used to measure and to assess the progress towards sustainable development. So we have 232 indicators to do this huge task. We'll talk about this number. Fantastic. Also in this case, the GDP, well, of course we know the problems of GDP to assess certain things, but everybody talks about GDP. So again, however, they are still an underexplored field of study. And in fact, despite all these initiatives on sustainability assessment, on assessing sustainable development, and the well-known advantages and popularity, we can say, about this tool, there are still several risks about the outcomes of this process, and significant limitations have been pointed out. So, indicator factory, very popular sentence in the literature, because, well, we have so many. We understand that we have hundreds of challenges. And the majority of these challenges, they are old. They were presented in the 7 could be, do we need those challenges? Do we still need to answer those challenges? So, what should be, or what are the societal questions that should be answered, or could be answered by indicator initiatives, again with the social lens? For example, one of these questions could be, who needs sustainable development indicators? Who will use this information? And who wants sustainable development indicators? If we don't know the answer to this question, probably it's better to stop. And I finished my presentation. So, other question could be, what effective changes sustainable development indicators are driving on a daily life of governments, organizations like UN, communities, families, or individuals? We still don't know, because the majority of the indicators and the sets of indicators are not, are in the documents, are in the papers, in the scientific papers and books and so on, and in the end we don't know who is using this. So another question, another example of one important question that should be answered, where sustainability indicators information should be provided, where? So where this information should be provided to improve access and use. That's two keywords, to improve access and use. So internet, emails, postal mail? No, probably not. So newspapers, outdoor monitors, public audiences? We still don't know the answer for this. Well, we can say, oh, we know part of the answer, but we don't have the complete answer. So, and this one is really important. How reliable or uncertain are perceived these sustainable development indicators? So, and there are many more related with the social impact of assessing sustainable development. We don't have time here to explore all the different questions. I mean the fourth pillar, if you want. So there's things related with values of sustainability. And this is really difficult to include with practical tools. And nowadays it's so easy because the technology, as you mentioned, evolved in a fantastic way. Follow up sustainable development. So following kind of stakeholder-driven approach for sustainability assessment. So to conclude, well, I think that SDGs are a huge opportunity to change this, because SDGs create the visibility for the sustainable development assessment, for sustainability, well, for all this with the same target. Also, the official terms provided by raw data and statistics and indicators, as I already mentioned,
efficient because we're closing loops on a very small scale. That might be an ideal, but it wouldn't necessarily work for all materials in all places. Is it about a strategy for sustainable economic growth, or is it actually a degrowth strategy that we want to move away from in society, where we judge its merits on how quickly the economy grows? Perhaps we have some other indicators that we judge instead of GDP, but that is quite a fundamental one. Anyway, so many questions about what a circular economy could be, should be, will be. We have to wait and see. But several of us here are involved in a project which is in the process of examining how sustainable a circular economy might be. Because I would say that it doesn't necessarily have to be sustainable. It might be very circular, but is it circular, is it sustainable in terms of being fair and equitable? Those are somewhat open questions. So this project, as with the one that Peter mentioned, is funded by the European Commission. It's a Marie Skłodowska-Curie Innovative Training Network. And now, to somebody in this room, this type of project might be of great interest. They are funded from Europe, but the people hired, the PhD students who are the main beneficiaries of these projects, they can come from anywhere. So when you're looking for what you do next, unless you already have a PhD, then have a look at the European Commission website and see if there's a project that's hiring. It's a fantastic opportunity to do your PhD as part of a large network. And there we are, standing in Hull a few months ago on a sunny day. I won't dwell on the various themes that are covered by the project. I think I should move on. So Hull is part of work package 4, which is looking at who benefits from the circular economy. So it's a geography project, essentially. We're looking at the spatial and social distribution of the benefits or the disbenefits from the developing circular economy. I mentioned earlier that Hull is the city that's been left behind, and while I hesitate to mention the B word, is not far from my mind, Brexit, I'll just say it quickly to get them out of the way. Hull voted quite strongly to leave, and that's typical of cities where there are high rates of unemployment, there are lower than average educational attainments, higher than average rates of teenage pregnancy and obesity and so on. So Hull does well at all the wrong things in many of these social cities. So there's a lot of very justifiable discontent, which unfortunately expressed itself in a certain way. So the City of Hull, the local authority, is a partner to this project. They've got several initiatives for building a circular economy locally, with a view to helping the economic competitiveness of local companies. But will Hull itself benefit from this? This is what Aidan from Ireland is looking at in his project, because the companies that are based in Hull are part of global supply chains. So will any economic benefits that the companies get from the circular economy actually be distributed internationally rather than sticking in Hull? That is what we hope to find out. One of the students in this work package, Santiago Perez from Colombia, he's actually based in France at UTT. He's working on a project which is with IDE-Alsace, the Regional Development Agency, looking at how we can build a collaborative network to develop a circular economy associated with the port of Strasbourg. Two other projects to quickly mention, perhaps these two are probably the most relevant to a social discussion. Heather from Canada is looking at the types of jobs that might be created in Hull again and comparing to Lisbon. Thomas is also involved in this project. So to what extent are jobs that are emerging within the circular economy matching the skills base of people in Hull? There are people in Hull whose families have been unemployed for 2 or 3 generations. There is no tradition of working. Will they suddenly be inspired by the idea of a job sorting waste? I'm not completely convinced, but this is one of the things that Heather will be investigating. So Hull is definitely on the wrong end of the inequalities in the UK. Can the circular economy help? Małgorzata Lekan from Poland is looking at a related project. She's working with an NGO, it's basically, successful charity in Hull that helps out some of the needy communities. So there are parts of Hull that are in what's known as a food desert, because there's no affordable food within walking distance of where people live. And these will not be people who own cars, so they need to get their shopping locally, and they're more or less forced to buy from local small shops that are more expensive than if they could access a supermarket. But they cannot afford to buy food as often as all of us like to. This organisation takes food from, well, when I say takes, they're giving food from local supermarkets, so food that's close to its sell-by date, and they distribute it to the local communities for what people can afford to pay. You can go into their shop, take a loaf of bread, give them 2p if that's all you've got, and they'll give you a loaf of bread to go home and feed your family. So this is a circular activity, but how does this very sort of small local level fit in with larger ideas about how we might implement a circular economy? How does that influence the behaviour of the supermarkets, for example, that they know that there's a local community that they can give food to? Would we prefer that the supermarkets were better organised and didn't have food left over? But then what would happen to this community? So there are all kinds of very difficult issues that Małgorzata will be investigating. Is the circular economy an example of social sustainability? I don't think we know the answer yet. Certainly most activities so far have been emphasising the environmental and economic considerations. We hope through this project, and of course other related projects that are going on, that we can raise a profile of social issues and gain a better understanding of what the implications are. And to do that, we are very keen to discuss and collaborate with people whose experience is more focused on the social issues than as has been to date. So with that, I will say thank you very much. So the final
Robert,
presentation,
maybe you should. Do you speak?
he can emit. Thank you. For Peter Dovers, who will now be representing Zhengwei Yuan.
For those of you who have been part of the NYU event earlier this afternoon know that I can be short at the end of the program. I will be just as brief to this point as well, and just telling you a few words about the different universities. And my charm, what I really appreciate very much, is that it brings the local, regional, national agendas for sustainability to the broader academic, Western, often public that is part of our conference. When we were in South Africa, for instance, we were facing just transitions as a theme. When we were in Colombia, we had also the peace and security, and were quite honored when the Nobel Prize winner, the president of Colombia, talked about how he fostered the peace with the FARC guerrilla. And here in Nanjing, someone else jumped ahead, but here in Nanjing, Professor Zhengwei Yuan held the Lishui International Summit during the conference. Lishui is a district in or around Nanjing. And as is always the case, we have our conferences during 3 days, Wednesdays to Fridays. Tuesdays is a PhD day when we welcome young professionals and PhD students to the conference, and we gear up and discuss their topics, the topics of the future. But we also end the tour with more time for networking, more time for talking to each other and getting to know each other better. And in this time we have sustainability tours by which
one of the missions working here at the United Nations on the other side of the spectrum as policy makers. I think we're very much dependent on this kind of work and on the research to make evidence-based, fact-based decisions. And also, what was very interesting, I think, is that you're looking at really at the interlinkages between the different dimensions of sustainable development, which are key and often not very well understood. And I mean, also for us as Germany, the circular economy in particular is one of a very, very important priority for us, because in the end, all of our well-being, all of our country's prosperity depends on natural resources, and we only have 12 years left to implement the Sustainable Development Goals, and it's quite clear that we're not on track at the moment, and the richest countries, mine among them, is, I think, we're consuming about tenfold the resources than the poorest countries on this planet, so there's definitely a problem with unequal distribution there. There's also a problem, of course, because we are facing a situation where resource extraction and processing of materials, they contribute to the vast majority of the decrease in biodiversity, water stress, but also climate change. So in the end, it's quite clear. We've been calculating the same thing. I think you had 8 of the Sustainable Development Goals was saying that it's a tool to reach or implement 8 of the Sustainable Development Goals. When we're officially counting, we're actually saying it's actually the resource efficiency is a prerequisite for up to 12, probably in the end, parts of all of the SDGs in the end. And so the message is quite clear that we really need to significantly cut our raw material consumption, especially in countries like mine, and we're trying to do that nationally. We have enacted a national resource efficiency program in 2012, which we're evaluating every 4 years. We're trying to decrease until 2030 our raw material productivity by about 30%. But we also know, and that's what I'm working on here as well, that none of our countries can do it alone. We're all part of a global value chain, and we need to cooperate very closely internationally. So very good to see also this kind of international cooperation here, and it's essential to make this clear, especially in the current times, that we need to implement the many agreements that we actually have and have successfully negotiated here in New York and elsewhere, to actually also implement them successfully. Like one example, and we've actually been also supporting these kind of global partnerships for quite a long time, and a very important example, I think, in our view, and maybe you can have a look at that, is the Partnership for Action on the Green Economy, which is a global partnership where I think by now 5 UN agencies are participating in that. It's a multi-stakeholder approach, so many other ministries are involved. It's working across countries, regionally, and in partnership with the private sector to actually help other countries as well. I think it's working at the moment with 18 countries around the world to provide integrated technical advice for capacity building, to enable them to also come up with this kind of national strategy for resource efficiency, and to get at least as close as possible to a circular economy at some point, and also to benefit from the job creation that comes or can come and will come, we believe, with more resource efficiency. I think the ILO has estimated that from implementing the Paris Agreement alone, 18 million additional jobs will be created globally. So maybe our main message here on the circular economy in general is, I think we know many of the instruments available to us, and it's really because we are so close to 2030 in policy making relations. We really need to start translating these lessons now, and rapidly put these lessons into action. More indicators and not new approaches. We need more research as well. It's quite clear as we move along. But we need, and that's me talking to myself, we need to, and the other delegations here in New York and elsewhere, we really need to put things in actions and have more integrated policies as well, and get out of our silos and move from lip service to action. So this is a very timely event, and I thank you very much that we could be part of it.
Thank you very much.